Stanislavi.
Dobar dan, dame I gospoda. Dear colleagues, first of all, I want to express me and Associate Professor Marulevska. We want to express our gratitude to Professor Mirković.
Blagoevgrad.
Mirko Blagoevgrad. I'm sorry. Professor Blagoevgrad and the Institute of Social Science for this opportunity to participate in this conference. Our report represents the influence of Christian teaching and religious education in the Bulgarian students in primary schools. Okay. We also pay special attention to the role of the family in its traditional form, moral attitudes to Bulgarian parents and their children towards this subject. Our report is also supported by empirical study. We conducted an online survey this year to reveal the view and moral attitudes of the Bulgarian parents towards Christian teaching in Bulgarian schools. And in 2023, we conducted also an interview with theologians, of whom 3 are teachers. And we want to find out about their opinion and personal experience about the influence of Christian religion in the children, in the primary education. The subject of analysis, as you can see, is the specific pedagogical features in religious educations and the educational influences and interactions within the family. The aim of our report is to reveal the role of religious education and its real potential to form the moral image of the modern child. Our main thesis is related to our conviction that religious education forms spiritual and moral qualities that are fundamental for the overall development of the personality and to a large extent determine the nature of relationships and interactions in the social environment. Our research is concerned with revealing the level of moral concepts of good and evil formed in students at the primary school level, the nature of their moral attitude, and the subject of religion, as well as the role of the family in the formation of spiritual and moral values. In the various stages of development of Bulgarian society and state, the Christian religion has occupied an important place in Bulgarian education and in the spiritual life of the nation. Christian values play their role in the formation of moral qualities and have an important meaning in our society. The understanding of good and evil, it is the heart of morality and ethics, and is linked to the existentially important questions about the nature of suffering, happiness, the meaning of life and salvation, justice, peace, and the preservation of the world, love of neighbor and love of God, success, failure, guilt, and forgiveness. The pedagogical process at the level of primary education should, by its organization and content, contribute to a great extent to the formation of a comprehensive view of the world around the pupils, the children in the primary schools, and to the formation of their worldview. Moral education, as an integral part of educational activity and the teaching of religion, has its own contribution to the complex process of building the moral foundations of the personality. The next slide, please. As you know, our empirical studies supporting the main thesis. The next slide, please. We also touch on important aspects regarding development of the moral values in students in the primary schools. The next slide, please. Now, we are reached to the online survey of Bulgarian parents. On the basis of this survey, important issues on the subject under consideration from the perspective of parents are revealed. 30 respondents took part in the survey, of whom 47% were between the ages of 35 and 44, 23% between the ages of 24 and 35, and 9% over the age of 44. The majority of respondents, 90% of them, were married, 7% were single parents, and 3% of them were planning to start a family. Of these, 80% had tertiary education, 70% secondary education, and only 3% of them primary education. The next slide, please. The sample we have is typical of the young active part of the population in Bulgaria. Fortunately, at this stage of the development of Bulgarian society, we observe a preserved attitude towards the family as an institution and in its traditional form, through which the reproduction of society is carried out by the power of education. Another important feature comes to the fore, the value of education. The higher educational level of the majority, 80% of respondents, is also an indicator of the attitude towards education, at least as a formal feature of society. For 70% of the survey, education is necessary, and 14% of them define it as a high value. And for 2, it is a priority in life. Parenthood is a conscious choice and a fact of life for 90% of the respondents. The next slide. Yeah. A significant number of parents, which are 77%, are in favor of the inclusion of religious education in modern Bulgarian schools, while 20% of them are only somewhat in favor of it, and 3% are not against it but have a different position. Regarding the inclusion of their children in religious education, 80% of the parents in Bulgaria give a very positive answer, 17% with some hesitation, and 3% of them have a different opinion. A large majority of respondents, which are 63%, say that religious education contributes to a great extent to the formation of moral qualities, attitudes, and values. All respondents stress the main role of the family in the process of forming moral values in the young people. According to the parents, the moral qualities form first in the family, and then in the process of religious education are the basis for the spiritual well-being and future development of their children. As you can see, I take this photo from my personal archive, and this is a peaceful protest in Bulgaria this year in 22 of June, which support the family in its traditional form against the gender ideology. Me and my family participate in this cause, as I can say, because we are concerned about the future, not only for my children, I have 2 children, but for the future of the children in Bulgaria at all. Okay, in the next slide. According to the survey, almost all parents believe that the acquisition of basic Christian virtues is necessary for the overall development of the child's personality, making him an example for others, an active and conscious citizen of society and of the future. The most important virtues and moral values that parents wish to instill in their children are responsibility, obedience, respect for teachers and parents, honesty, love of God, love of one's neighbor as oneself, charity, and mercy. According to the parents, the moral qualities form first in the family, as we know that, and then in the process of religious education, they're the foundation for their upbringing. This picture is also for my personal archive, and this is my son with his grandfather, and he is reading Bible to him. Oh. Yes. I picked this photo because me as a parent... Как называется? Kaloyan. Kaloyan? Kaloyan, yes, Kaloyan. I want to instill also in my children this kind of Christian virtues. And I want to be an example for that I'm a parent who want to have a religious education in our schools. And I'm teaching my children in these kinds of virtues. Now, the next slide, please.
This slide?
The next one, yes.
Next.
Yeah. Okay. We also interview 5 theologians, and 3 of them are professor of religion, and they were interviewed for the study. All the questions are directly related to the role of religion in primary education in the formation of moral values in the course of education. The interview is structured and consists of 8 questions. The analysis of the interview data showed a great similarity in the positions of the interviewers. All the theologians who took part in the interview expressed the opinion that the family has the most important role in the moral education of the children. One of them said to me that children must be infected by Christian faith. And I agree with him, because children must be infected with Christian faith than to be infected by something evil and wrong, like bad influence and, for example, gender ideology. It is in the family that the assimilation of social norms, moral requirements, and patterns of behavior takes place, mainly through imitation. For this reason, almost all stress that the adoption of the Christian faith begins with home education. Purposeful moral education in the family is also a perspective for effective moral education in religious education. Without exception, all of them pointed out that the role of religious teacher is extremely important for the formation of moral qualities in the pupils. They stress the importance of his personal example and his deep conviction of the value of Christian virtues. Positive social interaction between teachers and parents is also necessary. Religious education, according to them, forms moral values, but certain conditions are necessary for this, the most important of which is family education. The education of the child in basic Christian virtues also depends on how attractive and interesting the content of the education is, and how biblically based it is, without overdoing the doctrinal religious content. The next slide, please. And the next one. Religious education, with its content, characteristic, and ideological moral messages, creates conditions for the formation of moral feelings and attitudes in primary school pupils. The pedagogical communication is based on the biblical faith and the basic common human values. Religious education enables pupils not only to become familiar with the Christian teachings of the Bible and the life of the Lord Jesus Christ, but also to commit themselves to the timeless moral values of Christian morality. To achieve the lofty goal of forming and building moral values, much more is needed than knowledge of church rules, rites, and customs. The education of students in the process of religious education must be based on the principles of Christian moral values and biblical content. An important indicator and the main educational factor for the formation of moral qualities in children is the family. It is there that the most favorable opportunities and conditions are created for the transmission and assimilation of the parents' way of life, standards of human behavior, formation of moral consequences, and spiritual moral principles. In modern social conditions, there are a number of negative influences on the structure of the family in its traditional form. These are rebellism, gender ideology, including the drafting of legal norms and decrees that contradicts the Christian moral ethical norms of the Bulgarian family. The traditional family is important for the formation of moral values in children and the formation of a positive attitude towards religious education. where this very model is adopted and based on the Christian faith. The work of promoting spiritual and moral culture is based on involving both adults and children in accessible understanding of the main traditional spiritual values in the context of Bulgarian national identity. The next slide, please. And for the final, this is my daughter in the middle. We have a Christian camp this year. And I want to final this report with a verse from the Bible. I want to read it in Srpski, and I'll try to do this. Pustite djecu da dolaze k meni I ne sprečavajte ih, jer takvima pripada carstvo nebesko. Biblija, Matej 19:14. Hvala puno.
Bravo. Da, dužni smo da se zahvalimo Stanislavi jer je uštedela